On today's video of the Iron Vlog, I'm going to take all of this pre-cut metal and build it into a stand for this thing. And we're going to put these super awesome leveling casters on it as well. Let's build some awesome shit. I'm going to insert this at the beginning of this clip so you know what I'm talking about. This is the tabletop right here, and it is what the lathe, it's what the wood of this is going to lay on. So this is all going to stay on this wood that someone else made, and then that is going to go on top of this. Alrighty, so if you don't have a table like this, make one of these first. I don't know. You could probably figure out a way to do this on the ground. It would just be a lot more tricky. Having a table like this to clamp to makes it very easy. But I have this clamped down. I have this all very perpendicular, and I started by just clamping down this one, and then I clamped down this one, and just worked it in, clamped it loosely, measured it in there, clamped it loosely, double checked it to make sure it was level, and so I have this sitting really solid. And then it's going to be hard to see on camera, but I'm just making sure I can't see any light coming out of this ruler here. So I got that there, and then I clamped it down really tight, and then I repeated the process over here on this one, and then so I know these were all parallel to each other, and then I put this part on, and I checked it. It's very, very parallel up in here, a little bit off over here, and I think there's probably a little bit of flex in this thing or something like that. And then I also used my tape measure to measure from like here to here, like this. So I measured here and looked at the distance there, and then looked at the distance here as well, and made sure we were looking good. So now this is all very square, and this is going to be the first piece, and then this will be like the main squareness that I work off of from here. And then these are all cross members that go in here, so I'm going to weld this up first, and then I'm going to weld in these cross members, and this is all going to be the tabletop, if I didn't say that already. Okay, so I got that welded. I'm going to let this cool down completely. These are pretty nice flat welds, but I'm going to go ahead and grind them down so that they're nice and flush so that I can clamp back onto the surface. Flip it around, clamp it again, weld that, let that cool completely. I like to let it weld, cool in between, and let it just tends to stay flat instead of trying to flip it around fast enough so that they cool at the same rate. I have this nice big table. I just like to let it just cool down on the table. So I'm gonna grind those flat, flip it around, weld the other side, grind those flat, and then I'll have this thing nice and flat, and then I'll put in these cross members. It's going to be interesting. This is a lot thicker gauge than, oh, it's hot, than the thickness of this. So it's going to be interesting to see if this kind of warps the table at all. Even though the table is more substantial, there's a lot more metal there. That's a thicker metal. So I'm curious to see. This is the thickest thing I've ever welded on this table. So pro tip, if you have chunks of aluminum, you can throw that down on your steel, and that'll soak up some of the heat and allow you to get welding faster, because you can sit there and wait for that to cool down. This is what they make heat sinks out of. That's why it's so difficult to weld. It just saturates with heat really quickly. Copper is like the only thing that's more conductive to heat than aluminum, other than fucking gold and shit like that. But if you had a gold bar, just stick your gold bar down there and it'll suck the heat out really quick. Okay, one thing you can tell when you do your grinding is you can tell if there's a high side or not. Actually, I'm going to go over to the other side here. And not that one, but this one is a great example. So you can tell that this side, this piece, which is this long piece, and both of these are higher. So these are a little bit higher than these other two pieces. And you can tell by the way this ground came out that you lose the corner here, but you don't lose the corner here. You see how that's very easily to define? And you can kind of tell that this one was a little bit higher anyway, but you can really tell here. And I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's because I put higher clamping force on these two. If you can see here, I have my big C-clamps. This is not a C-clamp, but I have two C-clamps down here. And I think what happened is actually that compressed it down a little bit more, because I was able to get more torque on this, and I put them on very tight because I didn't want it to warp. And now I'm thinking what I should have done is try to get the clamping force between all these a little bit more even. I need more of these type of clamps. These are easier to put on and off, but these allow for higher pressure. And so what I would ideally have done is put these two with the same type of clamp, with the same, even if they weren't the same type of clamp, the same amount of force coming down on both of these. And I bet you these would have been a little bit more aligned. So you can see here again, there's a line here and there's not here. That's because of the way this grounded down. This is just a little bit higher. So that's a good note. You can tell, and I think that's something I need to do in the future, is make sure I'm putting equal clamping force on both of those points so they all come down together. The one that came out the best was this one, I think. Nah, that one was high too. So they're all a little bit high. So that's something I should have done, and we'll try to do in the future. anyone's curious what I'm welding on the Prime Welds TIG 225X. Great little machine. Super budget friendly too. It's very cheap and works really well. And I will link to a video right here, that'll show my first welds on this and how horrendous they were, because I've gotten a lot better. As you should have seen, I just welded down these 3 cross members, and then I flipped it over, clamped it down, and then welded the other sides, and I've ground flat all the grounds. And I just want to show you guys like why having a bench like this is awesome, because this thing is just dead nuts flat. There is no play in this thing at all. You can, oh, it's like a little bit right there, maybe. I mean, there's like, looks like there might, maybe a little bit, maybe like a slight high spot right here. But I mean, as far as welding construction goes, I mean, it ain't flat from machinist standards. But as far as welding construction goes, it is flat. And the other side's flat too. So, yeah, this thing is real solid. Yeah, I mean, there could be a tiny little play in it, but it's really flat, which is good. So I decided to do this, and I kind of moved the clamps around. So I kind of welded in the sides, and then I shuffled it because I wanted to get this clamps really good, and then I clamped that down, and I welded these 2 bigger ones. Kind of did a funky weld pattern with these 3 cute little welds. Not entirely sure why I did it that way, but that's how it came out. Same thing over here. So yeah, these welds here, and then I'm gonna decided to do this side, and then I'm gonna do this side, so I can get more clamps around where the heat is going over here. And then I'm gonna flip and do the other side, and then we'll flip it over. Alright, so now in the fading daylight, I have this thing up, and at this point I like to weld a little bit more traditionally, so not clamped down, because I'm going to be welding corner joints in here, just making them stronger. Maybe unnecessary, but I don't know, I'm a perfectionist. So what you're going to see me do is start at the bottom here, and then go to the top, and then go this direction or that direction. Weld here, 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 and then I'll switch, and I'll probably do a little tack on the inside there, and there on this thinner gauge stuff. There, and then do the outsides and the outsides. And so starting in the middle and working out, make sure that this is all heating up and cooling down at the same rate, and should keep the warpage out. I'm comfortable doing that because it's balanced. It's very balanced. It's very fast to weld this way, so it all heats up and kind of cools down at the same time, and it usually does not introduce a lot of warp to my parts. Let's see what happens. Ignore all this mess over here, but this right here is what we're looking at. This is a very incredibly useful appendage I made for my welding table, and it comes on and off at a 90-degree angle. And I measured out the angle with this protractor, and then I double-checked the angle and fine-tuned it by putting this up against here and getting it level when the bed's level, table's level. And I did that, and then measured this angle in here, which I have written up in CAD, or not the angle, I'm sorry, the distance from there to there, from the base of this to where this was. And then I just double checked that angle, and I got them both really tight, and it's all clamped down to the table, and then this is clamped down to the angle, and now I'm going to weld them in here, and then after that we'll put in the cross member. Alright guys, my camera died, so I missed the welds, but I welded in here, and then there, and then on the back side here, and then I went ahead and got this clamped in, and then the way I did this is I took my calipers, and I measured, and then I'm going to get them lined up on the other side. Ooh, it's not fitting on the side, that's weird. Okay, I gotta redo that. I guess it's shifted on me while I was messing with it. But that's how I'm gonna adjust that, and get that in there, and then I'm gonna weld. I'm just gonna weld on the front here, and then let it cool, and then I'll take it off and flip it around, and then we'll do the other side. See all that orange? That's from me dipping the tungsten in the, well, actually not dipping, it's me dabbing the tungsten. And then that's oxide, that's why it looks like rust, it oxidizes for some reason. And then I got this side finished, and this side was the side you saw me do. And then I have this laid up in here, and I just tacked it down this end just to hold it there, and I got it lined up here. So now we're going to weld this into place. I decided I leave all the clamps just to give it extra rigidity that I did when I had it here. Then I get this welded, and then I take it off the clamps. Alright, now you're going to see me take this and put it on the table as it was, and then just weld in all those spots that I missed. So I'm going to take it, lay it down, move it around, and fill in like all of those guys. Alright, now what we're going to do is I'm going to take these caster plates, and I have these super badass casters that are leveling. Really excited to use these, never used them before. And I'm going to put these underneath each one of these, line them up, just eyeball it, and then I'm going to put weights there, and on top to kind of pin it down. I'm not going to clamp it, but just use weights to pin it and clamp it, and then go around and weld all the feet on. Hell yeah. That is a solid stand right there, guys. That's a solid stand. Alright, for me, I'm going to go inside and sleep and do other things, and then I'm going to come back in the morning and I'm going to put the casters on this and then the lathe. Alright guys, I wanted to film me putting the lathe on the stand and putting the casters on and doing all that, but I was doing this to move, and then I ended up starting to move, and if you ever moved, probably have, it's very time consuming and chaotic, and I just wasn't filming. So now it's like 2 weeks later, and I'm in my new shop in Fort Collins, and I have the lathe on the stand. Look at this right here. It came out, I have to say, really, really well. I really am very, very happy with it. Like when I first took it down, when you saw me take it down, like I was so surprised that I had built something like that good. I'm like, man, this looks really good, like even better than I thought it was gonna look. So I'm really happy with it. Let me kind of show you, walk you through how it came out and everything that I got on it and what I've done in like the 2 weeks since I was filming everything else you saw in this video thus far. First thing you're probably going to notice is this light. This is like an Adam Savage inspired light. I'll try to remember to put a link for you guys to see how to make one of these, but I just essentially copied his stuff exactly. Great little light. It just thread tapped onto the back here. Really easy here. But let's also talk about this down here. So this down here, which is kind of messy, I was going to stain it and I have this towel on it to not mess it up, and then I just haven't stained it yet. But this is a piece of wood. It's a nice piece of birch ply that I cut out, and then I drilled some holes in here, and I should have thread tapped them is what I should have done in hindsight, but I just drilled a hole straight through, and then there's a bolt. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bolt on the underside down here, and then there's or a nut rather. There's a nut down here, and then the bolt is up here. So that's all bolted down, and I use these nice flathead screws to keep it just very, very nice this way. And this is just a nice spot to hold stuff. And so now what I want to do down here is obviously get rid of the rag at some point, the towel, because I want to stain this, but I just don't want it to get super dirty, so that's why I have it here right now. And what I might end up doing is like building some different types of ways of kind of holding and organizing some of this stuff. But honestly, there's so much room down here, you can honestly just lay on here. And like I said, it's messy right now. I just got done moving, but obviously these papers won't be all over everything. But I have just all my tooling in here. They come off my tool post. I have a bunch of stock back here, stuff like that. And it looks pretty good. Let's talk about these casters right here. I also have them on my CNC machine over here, but I'll put a link to that video if you're interested about this. But these casters right here are leveling, which I was super happy about and thought I was really gonna enjoy. But then the weight of the machine, when you get it on there, it's very, very heavy and it's hard to twist those casters. And I ended up jabbing myself really hard in the finger with a screwdriver right there. I don't know if you can see that. Just saying, it's not to whine, just painful, and they're annoying to deal with. So what I ended up doing was taking a whole bunch of blocks of wood and stacking them up like really close to this foot in order to give it a high moment arm, and then taking a big piece of wood and pushing down on it, and then lifting it up just a little bit, and then grabbing the caster and twisting it while I was up, and then that's how I leveled it. And then so I just put a level up on the ways here, got it nice and clean, and put a level on it, and then I leveled both ways. And then there's actually not that much travel, so this one I was looking at here, I'm sure you saw, there's 2 pieces of metal under here, 2 pieces of just cut aluminum, and even a little sticker in here, because this is almost all the way down. Almost all the way down, not quite, but close. So that's how I had to end up doing that. All in all, I think it's a pretty good design. I want to build some of those at some point that have a spot for a impact driver, where you just stick the impact driver in there and twist, and then that would raise and lower it. That'd be really cool. But I haven't done that yet. Anyway, I'm really happy with the way this thing came out. I really am. It was pretty damn easy to move. Unfortunately, I should have got some video of me like pushing it around on this nice polished concrete that's in this garage. But man, it moved like butter. It's like a 300, probably like close to 450 pounds. And those casters, I mean, it just glided like no one's business. In fact, it's easier to move around than the table that's back here. I have a sheet of metal I covered it with, but the table that you saw me build it on was harder to push around in here than that thing was. So, I mean, I use cheap casters on the table, and those are kind of expensive casters, so I guess that's kind of to be expected, but that's kind of how that all worked out. Anyway, guys, really appreciate you watching, sticking till the end and seeing how this thing came together. But it ended up working out really well for me. I'm really happy with it. I haven't actually made a new part on it yet, but I'm about to make a little small thing very soon. So if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe and you'll see what I'm doing. I'm making a helping hand for my welding table, because it's a little thing that holds things down for you. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm glad you're here. Thanks again. Love you guys. Bye. I realized one thing I forgot to add, and I'm going to add here at the end of the video, is how this thing actually bolts to this. Ignore my clippers. For some reason, I always keep them on my lathe. I'm not joking. These are all bolted in here. So that thinner piece that you saw me place underneath, down here where I put those 3 welds up here, 3 welds up here, and then the 2 smaller ones here, that was to hold these bolts on. So here's the nuts in the back and their little nylon washer so that they don't shake loose, and then the bolts here, and that bolts all this wood here, and then these right here bolt to the wood. So you can be trammed and stuff by moving these bolts, or potentially these bolts too. In case you're wondering what my channel is all about and what I'm doing and what the iron vlog is I'm becoming Iron Man. And this CNC router right here, I'm going to cut aluminum, and then I'm going to use the welder that I used for the entire video to weld the aluminum together, and I'm going to make the suit. And I'm actually going to use this on some round parts to do it, but this suit that I'm making is not like cosplay. It's like a legitimate working Iron Man suit. So if you're new to the channel, if you want, hit subscribe and join us on the journey. So you guys are great.